Hey, you ever stop and think, wow, that would make a great story? Same here. On Cat Stories, we pull together short tales from life that'll make you laugh, think, or just go, yep, been there. My name's Kathleen and let's get started. And for our next post, am I the idiot for not lending my season ticket to my friend? Me and one of my friends both have season tickets for one of the biggest football soccer clubs in our country, where finding tickets for single games is really hard. As he is a seasonal worker outside our city, he misses the first few games at the start of the season. So, I asked him to give me his ticket for a game he couldn't attend so I could take my cousin with me. Of course he agreed. It was a last-minute thing as well, so it's not like he had anyone else to give it to. And now we come to the past week, where he asked for my ticket in return, so he could go with his girlfriend. But I had the intention of going to the game. I actually was really looking forward to it as it was a big game as well, so I denied. He says I owed him for when he gave me his. Am I the only one who sees the difference between the two situations? And for our next post, am I the idiot for telling my mom to stop letting my brother get away with stuff just because he's autistic? I 18F am the youngest out of 3 siblings. My oldest brother 22M has autism. He doesn't understand like everyone else does and is extremely smart in certain categories. Feelings are not one of them. He doesn't understand when he does something wrong, and when he doesn't get his way, things get out of hand. My father has been on my side for most of this. My brother, who we'll call Leo, always got his way. He has one cell iPhone, 3 iPads, a computer, a laptop, a PlayStation, Xbox, Wii, etc. I on the other hand have one iPhone and that's it. When he gets angry, he smashes and breaks his stuff. We have had to replace electronics more than I can count. I tell my mom not to give in, but she tells me off. She always has the same excuse. Your brother is autistic, he doesn't understand. Or when you grow up you can get a job and start a family, he can't. And yes, the family thing is true, but she shouldn't give in all the time. I tell her he's not going to learn or that he doesn't deserve it. I asked her for a monitor for my birthday, and instead I got books. She made up the excuse that we didn't have the money, but the same day she gets him a new iPad, which was over $1,500. I realized that that's the reason she said no, was so she could get him that on my birthday. Recently, my family has yelled at me for being inconsiderate and selfish for expressing how I feel. I don't know if I should stop trying to speak out and try to stop them from giving into his behavior. So, am I the idiot for wanting to be treated fairly? And for our next post, am I the idiot? Am I in the wrong for being mad about the people being close to me not telling me they think I could have bipolar? I 18F have been going to therapy for a good while now, and at my most recent session, my therapist 39M asked me an odd question. I was telling him about how I don't really sleep all the often, or I sleep too much, and just my mood swings and some paranoia I've been dealing with. After all that was laid on the table he asked me if I was bipolar, and to me that was an odd question, because I've never thought of that being a possibility until he brought it up. So when I arrived at home I asked my sister 22F what she thought about it, and she said she wouldn't be surprised if I had some type of mood disorder. And now I am obsessing over this, and have been taking online quizzes and looking things up in medical journals and diagnostic books. I don't see my therapist for another week or so because he is going on vacation with his family, and I don't really have anyone with experience with this type of thing to ask about this. So, am I wrong to be annoyed that no one told me their suspicions? And for our next post, would I be the idiot if I broke a promise I made to my mother? I 20FTM made a promise to my mother 47F 6 months ago, and I'm considering going back on it. Around 6 months ago, I was moving back into my college dorm, and I had a conflict with my mother over me being trans. She doesn't believe that I am actually trans, and that pursuing transition would be harmful to me, as she thinks I'll detransition within the next 10 years. She said some hurtful things, some of which is relevant and some of which is not. So I spent most of the conflict crying or refusing to respond. Some of the relevant things she argued was that I was not communicating enough to her about why I think I'm trans. In my perspective, I have done so in the past, but she typically says my examples didn't happen or just doubles down on how feminine I am, which induces dysphoria and led to the following: not answering her questions when there are conflicts like these issue. The breaking point in this conflict was when she threatened to tell my father they are divorced, his side of the family pays for college, that I should be pulled out of college because I was too unstable, and she worried that I would go take testosterone HRT on a whim when she couldn't do anything about it. This is when I made a promise that I would go to therapy prior to pursuing testosterone. The conflict was resolved soon after, and she stated that she was very relieved. Now, when I made this promise, it was true. I was having more doubts 6 months ago, and I did want to talk to a therapist first. However, as time has gone by, I am more sure that my decision to start testosterone is the right one. Since I will likely be paying for my own treatment, I don't want the extra cost and time delay for therapy to essentially confirm what I already know. I want to transition as soon as I have the money for it, and I don't want to delay feeling comfortable and happy in my own body. However, with breaking the promise I made to my mother, I would be bringing back that lack of communication I've had with her surrounding me being trans, and going against a solution that brought her relief. I'm worried that transitioning without taking the steps to prove my gender dysphoria would be an idiot move, as I had already stated that I would do that, and it might lend legitimacy to my transition, soothing my mother's anxieties. TLDR, I promised my mother that I would go to therapy before transitioning, and I'm considering breaking this promise to start HRT sooner. Would I be the idiot if I broke this promise? And for our next post, am I the idiot for ignoring my husband's longtime friends? My husband has some friends from college 20 years ago who showed up inside our house unannounced. While he was close with them years ago, they haven't lived in close proximity since college, so the friendship has been distant. I have been with my husband for 10 years, so I've known them for a while but have never been close with them. 2 days ago they texted my husband and said they would be driving through our area and were curious what we were doing Saturday night. We have a very busy weekend. My husband laid out our weekend plans in detail, and that's the last we heard from them. Until today, while we were out with my family, he receives a call from said friend who says they are getting close, but then they lose reception. Husband assured me there's no way they would show up at the house unannounced. Well, turns out they did. And not only did they show up unannounced, they went inside our home without a text or a call. I watched them on Ring, and my smart door lock tells me when it's been opened. They have stayed with us in the past, so I'm sure we've given them the door code, but I didn't realize they had written it down and kept it from over a year ago. Anyways, I was mortified. I'm currently 30 weeks pregnant. We have a resident cat and a sick foster kitten, so my home was not in the shape I'd like it to be to host people. I had just run out the door to our holiday events, so there are boxes in the living room, dirty dishes all over the kitchen, clothes on the bathroom floor, etc. Not to mention there are no clean sheets for the spare bed, and they have a teenager who we don't even have a bed for anymore. We used to have a second spare room but recently turned that into a nursery, but they wouldn't know that because they never checked in with us. And to top it all off, they recently adopted a dog and showed up with a dog inside our house. I watched in horror on Ring as they move bags of stuff and the dog into my home, and am thinking of how unprepared I am to have guests. Not to mention, I'm now worried about my cat being stressed out with the dog in her space, being unsupervised with the dog, etc. I was furious, probably partially pregnancy hormones, and partially feeling upset and violated with someone in my home uninvited. I'm usually a very well put together host, so this is my nightmare. They waited up until we got home from our other events so that they could hang out with my husband. I was so upset by it I walked right by them and didn't even say hi. This is where I may have been I guess I could have at least said hi and put on a nice face. Husband is prompting me to come socialize and be polite, but I feel so disrespected with this whole thing. I'm sick, I'm pregnant, I have a sick foster kitten I'm nursing back to health. I'm trying to balance all the holiday events. The fact that they felt they could come in unannounced is so rude to me. They'll now be here all night and I don't want to talk to them even in the morning. Am I the idiot? And for our next post, am I the idiot for going to Yosemite with my GF despite my mom asking me to not go? I am 31, am living in Cali. Have a long-term girlfriend who is Mexican. My Indian parents don't approve of her. We have been together for almost 6 years. In the last 3 years I have shared with my parents, but they want me to break up. They have always been nice while I was growing up and are caring and loving. But in this matter there has been a lot of friction. After the first time I mentioned, there was a lot of arguments and crying. My dad has been crying and I feel really guilty. But I have stuck with my girlfriend over the last few years even though I have not always been transparent that I am spending time with her regularly. My parents are in India. They know I see her but they don't realize the seriousness always are in denial a lot of times hoping I would change. So I shared over phone that I am going to Yosemite with my GF. My mom was shocked and became a huge deal. My dad also had a long conversation about how this relationship is not right. I know it's difficult for them but I have been bad in being transparent and assertive about my relationship. So now my mom is requesting and not going in this trip and saying she never gave an ultimatum but now she is asking me to swear on her life that I won't go for the trip. She says my dad will come to USA and meet my girlfriend if I don't go. She said this in the heat of the moment to convince me. I didn't at yes or no. I am so confused. I am trying to assertive and I want to say that I will be going on the trip. Will I be an idiot if I say I want to go on this trip despite her red line? I feel like I am making things worse but also feel like I have to put my foot down now. If I don't do it now later I don't know how I will marry my girlfriend. Any advice is helpful. Anyone experienced with Indian parents? And that's a wrap for today's stories. If you had a favorite or something similar happened to you, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. See you soon. Kat signing off.